Sawadee Pee and welcome to another Thailand Tuesday here for the Fun Kid Pod. Thailand Tuesday, the time of the week where I talk about, my life in Thailand since, and I mentioned it the last two times, surprisingly, at least for me surprisingly, because I didn't plan this podcast to be about living and moving and doing all things in Thailand. But there have been questions like, hey, you're in Thailand, how did you end up there, what are you doing there, how's your life there, and so on. So since there seems to be some interest, why not talk about it, right? So here we go, let's talk about it. And this time I think it's just very fitting that I talk about Songkran holidays. Why? Because right now, as time of recording this podcast, it's Songkran. Songkran is the Thai New Year. Songkran, Songkran, if you want to spell it. So Songkran is the Thai New Year's festival. It has usually 3 official holidays. First day of Songkran. This year, April 13th, the Tuesday, is the most important day. Then you have a second and a third day of Songkran. Now, usually most companies also give their employees the whole week off, if it's like this. Yeah, so you get the days that are connected to Songkran off very frequently. If not, you take the day off, right? Now let's just talk about how Songkran usually is, and then I'm going to explain how Songkran is during the pandemic. So usually Songkran is, if you would Google it, the explanation would be the water festival of Thailand. Thailand New Year equals water festival. So usually water plays a huge role during Songkran for several reasons. So it comes from like an old tradition that when you as a person, you would take some water and pour this over the hands of your elders, of your parents, your grandparents, and you would bow down, would bow to them, would thank them for being there for you, and so on. So that's how the water initially became a thing in Songkran, if I'm not completely misread on this. Then this continued to evolve. So then you wouldn't only pour it over the hands, sometimes you would pour it then over the shoulder, over the neck, for example. And this then slowly evolves into like what now are the famous water fights of Thailand. So if you would go to a famous tourist area in Bangkok, there would be Khao San Road, which is a famous tourist backpacker area. Silom Road is very famous for it. You would go to Chiang Mai, to the tourist areas, everywhere where in the tourist party areas. So it's not only for tourists, right? But in the party areas, there would be huge Songkran events where then there would be like huge water fights. So you see people running out with like big water guns just running around with big buckets of water, throwing water at people. You can see in Bangkok, when you go to Khao San Road or to Silom Road, the road is blocked, so it's only for pedestrians, right? No cars allowed. And so it's like a big rave, basically. Music blasting everywhere, people dancing, water being shot, thrown around. There are usually even big fire hoses there, where then like different shops, companies set up shop and then just spray the water around. Big, huge party. And then like the main commercial areas would have like foam parties and things like this, where they then, similar to also like a rave concert or whatever, where you just go partying, you dance, and there's a theme, and then they blast the foam around, you get wet, and so on. So that's usually what happens during Songkran. Also, if you just go out and you take a walk from where you live to the next convenience store, people gonna throw water at you, shoot water at you, whatever. Or whoever. So you will not stay dry. It's basically impossible to stay dry. And this is kind of fun for a day. After 2 days, it's exhausting. On the third day, it's pretty annoying. Especially that then lots of people try to also outdo each other by how much water can they throw at you. How can they soak you? So even if you're on a motorcycle, they would splash water at you from the sidewalk, which could be really dangerous. If you're in a car, they do it too, but I mean, whatever, it's in a car, right? If you're in a bus, in Thailand, if you aren't in a fancy bus, then those cheap buses, the windows don't close. People just splash water into the bus, which could be really freaking annoying. So it's fun if you go to those dedicated areas, like, yeah, let's have some fun. That's cool. If you just walk around randomly trying to go from point A to point B, it's not that much fun anymore. I got soaked a lot and I got sick a lot because of that. Because then also lots of people try to, let's say what it is, they try to piss you off more by using super cold water. So they cool the water down, put lots of ice in there just to give you that extra kick when they hit you with the water. Yeah, so this happens a lot. My first real Songkran that I celebrated here was one day in Udon Thani. So I then went to the big park in Udon Thani, which is Nong Prachak Park, and you would walk around Nong Prachak Park, and then there are lots of people like, with those water guns, like with the fire hose. They pump the water out of the lake. It's insane, just to splash it and throw it and whatnot. Crazy. And while this can go crazy, and I lost my phone there, like to the water. I had it in like those a waterproof bag. There was too much pressure when they used like those fire hoses. The water still went into that waterproof bag, and my phone died. Yeah. What else? So what pisses me off the most is that it's not only the water. It's like they're using like baby powder to powder your face. So they come in you and then they powder your face. It's called tradition. So that annoys me a lot because I don't like people touching my face, random people. Like, why would it be cool? But what's even worse is for girls usually, and I heard it a lot from friends. They said that lots of guys, they use it as an excuse to come closer to girls and to just touch them inappropriately. Even if you don't want this guy to touch you, it's like, hey, Songkran, Sawadee Pee Mai. That means Happy New Year in Thai, Sawadee Pee Mai. And then they just touch your face with the powder, and then just they touch you a little bit more and so on. So that's a very weird tradition. Now, lots of people, when they go out, they now wear protective sunglasses, kind of like glasses, not in sunglasses, but like party glasses, so to speak, that are like big and protective, so that at least you don't get this powder stuff or the water in your eyes. Because there's also been cases of like water that was, I don't know, there was something in the water which can burn your eyes or your skin or whatnot. So people are assholes. So now it's trying to be a bit more protective there, but I mean, things still happen, of course. All right, then my second day of Songkran was in Chiang Mai. So in Chiang Mai, it was actually the most fun in terms of party Songkran, simply because it wasn't as big, as crazy as in Bangkok. For example, we were walking around, I was there with friends. You walk around the main area in Chiang Mai, the main tourist area, then you can see like people shooting water with like water guns and so on. But if you say, hey, and you move on the other side of the street, you're safe. You just, okay, I'm going home right now, for example. I try to drive. It's late at night. I don't want this to go on the other side of the road. Then you're safe, which is fine. We even passed a hotel, and then on the way to our hotel, to our guest house back then, and we passed the hotel and we saw people saying with like water. We're like, oh no, not again. We almost made it home. We're almost dry now. It's late at night. It's cooler now, especially up there in the north. And we're like, okay, whatever, one more time. And then they had warm water, and they just put it over our backs. And we're like, yes, thank you. More. That was very nice of them. I appreciate it. I forgot the hotel name, but you guys rocked. Thank you very much. It was amazing, like almost 10 years ago. Then on the next day, we went to Sukhothai, which is like an ancient town here, like the ancient capital of Thailand. And that was crazy. It's a small town. But so if you go from the hotel, you go to the Sukhothai ancient ruins or whatnot. So that was the plan. On the third day of Songkran, which should have been like more quiet. And then we take a Songteo. I talked about this in the last podcast, the last Thailand Tuesday, like one of those open minivans with like those two bench rows in the back where you can sit down. So we took this, and then we wanted to go to this ancient town. And then we ended up in a traffic light. And while we were waiting at a traffic light or at an intersection or whatever, we waited there for a while in a traffic jam. There were people coming with like a fire hose, and they pumped the fire hose. They held it right into the minivan and then just opened fire, basically opened water, and they just, with so much pressure, they flooded the freaking minivan. And my friend who was with me, he had like his super expensive DSLR camera with him, and like, no, just try to cover the DSLR camera. That was crazy. It was not fun at all. They just tried to piss us off there by flooding the freaking minivan. That was just insane, and I hated them for this. So you can see, it can be fun, it can be annoying. So yeah, but it's always crazy. Also, Songkran is well known for the period being the period of the year where most people die on the streets and road accidents, because people usually have the Songkran holidays off, so then they go home. If they work in Bangkok or whatever, they go home to the home province, they drive, they get drunk, they die. So Thailand is infamous for road accidents, road death, and during Songkran they call it the 7 deadly days, the weekend before, the weekend after, and then the time of Songkran. So people die a lot. Like usually there are already a lot of people dying on the streets, on the roads here. During Songkran, even more. It's insane, and nothing's being done about it. It's just pure insanity. But let's not go down that road. I don't want to get arrested or anything. So that's Songkran during normal times. Now during the pandemic last year, this year again. So last year Songkran, the official celebration got cancelled. So this means that then they may have some made-up holidays later in the year, so that people can take some days off and travel, so to boost at least the domestic tourism industry. This year, the third wave now hit like 3 days or 4 days before today, before Songkran holidays. And so now they said, yeah, people should stay home, but they didn't ban travel because it was too late. And now half of Bangkok is already gone, I think, like back home to the south, wherever, on holidays. So now everyone is expecting the third wave to hit even more. But it's not a COVID podcast, it's a Songkran podcast. So what I'm saying is the official celebrations have been canceled basically everywhere. You're urged not to go out, not to party. Of course, I'm sure they're going to have some make-up holidays, like 1 or 2 public holidays announced again later in the year to make up for the missed opportunities now. I'm guessing they urge hotels to give you like refunds or to give you like vouchers in case you have to postpone it and so on. Not every hotel does that though. If you booked already and then you don't go because you want to stay home, #stay home, not every hotel is that nice to say, okay, well, sure, because there's no official travel ban in all provinces. Some provinces say if you're coming from Bangkok, you have to quarantine, for example. If you come from one of the high infected or the high danger zones, welcome to the danger zone. If you come from one of the danger zones, let's call it that, and you have to quarantine. Others don't say that. So there's no real, rule enforced right now. But in terms of Songkran, the official celebrations, the water festivals, all the official things are cancelled. And you are not allowed to go out, throw water, shoot water. Usually during normal times, also people then just driving around on big pickup trucks and just throwing water left and right. Also not allowed to do, you're never allowed to do this, but usually police doesn't do anything. This time, of course, they would do something. So you're not allowed to celebrate openly in public. Now there has been the news that, for example, on Phuket, like a big party island here, the big famous island here in Thailand, that there are parties being held, and those people probably have to pay fines or get arrested for a bit or whatever, because the government and the police, of course, they don't want to see that. So that's Songkran right here, right now. So I'm thinking, did I forget anything? No, Songkran. If you think about coming to Thailand to live, more about this in the future episodes, I think, for holidays. If you have to, and the pandemic is over, there's herd immunity, we are vaccinated, whatever comes first. So if you end up coming here and you have the chance to come during Songkran, take 1 day for the craziness, it's worth it to just participate once, make sure everything is waterproof. But then, I wouldn't celebrate Songkran necessarily in Bangkok if you're here anyways. 1 day is fine, I think. But other than that, I try to find some Songkran celebration somewhere else, a bit more traditional or even a bit more crazy. It's up to you, of course. But definitely try to experience Songkran at least once. Okay, so as I said, Happy New Year in Thai is Sawadee Pee Mai. So that's it for me for this quick episode on Songkran. Sawadee Pee Mai. I hope you have a happy, healthy Thai New Year. And then in the next episode, we will go back down the rabbit hole in regards to what's life in Thailand, how to set up shop here, what to do, and I know what to expect when you live here. Until then, one more time, Sawadee Pee Mai, Sawadee Krap. I see you next time.